You're watching Real Simple News America on Thursday, July 19th or July 9th, 2020. I'm your host, Cale McCullough, and today's top story: BLM hate symbol painted in front of Trump Tower in New York, and a Facebook civil rights audit says the platform has been weaponized by Donald Trump and quote-unquote right-wing extremists. Let's look into this. So the top news story here, the Black Lives mural painted in front of Trump Tower. Why are people saying that this is a symbol of hate? Because you're like, okay, well, what are you? You don't support Black lives? I'm like, no, that's the opposite of the truth. I love Black people. I have lots of Black friends, and there's hardly any Black people in Eugene. Black Lives Matter. This Black Lives Matter mural is a symbol of how much Black Lives Matter members hate Donald Trump. They hate Donald Trump with a passion. I was one of the people who helped start the 2016 Portland anti-Trump protest. And I used to be a brainwashed liberal or lib. Hold on. We have to make sure we use the right words. You have to target people. Don't just blanket all liberals, because liberals throughout history have been wonderful people. They helped start this country. This country has been founded on liberal principles such as equality. And so there's a difference in between liberals and a lib or a lefty. They're synonyms. And the difference is that a lefty prioritizes fairness, the moral fairness, as in Steven Pinker's universal morals, where there is cleanliness, authority, group loyalty, self-protection, and fairness. I actually could say them all without forgetting one now. And the lefties value fairness above everything else. And their group loyalty is the next one. So they have conflicting beliefs. This is why they act so crazy. On one side, they're saying, no, we want to be really fair. But on the other side, the lefties will block you the moment they think that you're racist, because they think that they have a right to control everyone's free speech, because they think that somehow hate speech isn't one of the reasons why the founders of the United States crafted the Constitution in such a way. They believed that speech was also too protected speech, because this is what's so crazy about the Facebook thing saying that the platform's being weaponized by Donald Trump is that banning free speech historically has been weaponized. So this is a lot of things with lefties are completely counterintuitive. So the Black Lives Matter symbol, it stands for F Donald Trump. I remember when I helped start the 2016 Portland anti-Trump protest, I thought Donald Trump was a sexist, misogynistic pig because he said, grab her by the pussy, and they wanted to build a wall, and I thought that was racist. And at the time, I did not know that not all Latinos support illegal immigration. I thought they were just trying to target some poor minority group, these white supremacist Republicans. I didn't understand why they thought that way until I started to study the U.S. Census data. And here, let me pull it up real quick, because I bring up the census data and I can prove it very quickly. Here is the United States Census Bureau article called "A Changing Nation: Population Projections Under Alternative Immigration Scenarios." And this shows you how corrupt the Democrats are. And in here we can see In figure 1, U.S. populations 1900 to 2016, population projections 2017-2060 by immigration scenario. And so we can see historically, it looks like we've had somewhat linear progression. And so if this goes on to infinity, we overpopulate the planet and we die from global warming, nightmare scenario. So the Democrats, they want this top one here, the high immigration scenario. And the Republicans want the low immigration scenario. We don't want to cut immigration off. We just want it to be restricted because of global warming. And because the people who live here and pay taxes, their children are not racist, even though you think the white people are racist. The children are actually indeed innocent. It is indeed actually their country because they were born here. And our Constitution says that it is their country and it is not the illegal immigrants. So the Republicans would like to do the sane, rational thing that is going to be good for the planet, is to make it, if you take the delta here, you got 446.9 million people on the high immigration scenario and 376.2 million people. The delta there is 70 million people. And I'm not sure exactly if you can imagine how much pollution 70 million Americans would produce, but that is actually indeed a lot of pollution. So the Democrats, the reason why they want this high immigration scenario is because 2/3 of these immigrants are voting for Democrats. And they're allowing 56% of illegal immigrants come from Mexico. One in 20 Mexican citizens is in the United States illegally. There's 20 illegal immigrants for every homeless person on the street. And so when you add the immigrants, once you start biasing it, if you look at the immigration, where they're coming from, about 25% of them are from Mexico. So what happens is the southern border starts to slowly start creeping up, and then Mexico can take over. So the reason why Russia invaded Crimea and took over Crimea when we had to put sanctions on them is because they invaded, because they said there was a lot of Russian citizens that lived there. And so this is the problem with illegal immigration, is that on the southern border, your neighbors might all of a sudden annex your territory. We've already gone to war with Mexico once over the territory. And the lefties like to say that there was Mexicans living there. They're like, oh, well, they were like, we took it from Mexico. And they're like, really? You mean the Spanish conquistadors that broke off from Spain? Oh, yeah. The ones that were incredibly racist against black people and Amerindians, they owned slaves. But compared to the Aztecs, they were relatively good people. The Aztecs did ritual human sacrifice of virgins, and they did own slaves. And they were probably both equally as bad, but one was way more technologically advanced. One society did not invent a wheel, and one society came over in boats with wheels. But I thought you used to think Republicans were like incredibly racist because they didn't support illegal immigration. And little did I know, a third of the Latinos don't support illegal immigration either, and that's because 56% of illegal immigrants are from Mexico. And there's like 450,000 immigrants here from Brazil, population 12 million people. And Mexico has 150 million people. So you do the math, there's like almost 6 million illegal immigrants from Mexico. So if you do the math, there's like 6 times more illegal immigrant Mexicans than Brazilians. So if you're a Brazilian, why would you support this? If it allows Mexico to take over Southern California, California is the 6th largest economy in the world, and then Texas, the 10th largest economy in the world. You're allowing Mexico to take over some of the largest economies in the entire world that we've gone to war with Mexico for. And no, there were not Mexicans here when we took the territory. It was unoccupied because they were conquistadors. They did not exercise control over the land. They just said, this is our territory, and that's why the United States came in and took the land. But Americans think, or the lefties are brainwashed into thinking that like the white people took the land from the Amerindians because like somehow they're the only indigenous people around here because they came from Asia. They walked across the land bridge and then we floated across on a boat and with wheels when we got across, because, you know, wheels are so technologically advanced that it requires a genius to figure them out. But like California is, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the Mexicans that live there. But the problem is that 30% of federal drug trafficking charges or convictions are against illegal immigrants. 50% of them are against Latinos. So, and a lot of this is coming from these big cities near the border where there's a lot of Mexican cartels bringing in drugs. And then there's a large homeless population where there's people like in San Francisco where there are ivory towers. And then there's homeless people banging heroin on almost every single street corner, taking shits. And you can get cholera, typhoid fever, the Black Plague, hepatitis C, HIV, and TB, and COVID when you step on a pile of shit with a hypodermic needle in it next to a home bum banging some cartel dope who just coughed. And this is San Francisco, the place where liberals eat their grandmother. This was covered in a episode of Real Simple News. I'm not kidding. This guy ate his grandmother. And these are the people in San Francisco. Okay, so they're not all eating their grandmothers. I am being a little bit facetious when I say that. But everybody thinks the Republicans are racist for this. But the problem with this is that the Democrats were the ones who started the owned slaves. They started the KKK. They opposed women's suffrage. And they passed the 1994 crime bill that put most of the black people in jail and caused all of the police brutality, and most of it's in Democratic-controlled cities. And so these Democrats, they want the high immigration scenario because 2/3 of them are voting for Democrats, and it allows the population of California to get very large, and then that allows them to boost the number of U.S. House seats that they have, and allows them to control the U.S. House of Representatives almost indefinitely because of their large size. And there's like 34% of LA speak Spanish, and the rate of illegal immigrants there is just crazy. It's like Mexico's taking over LA. And so there's absolutely nothing racist about kicking these people out, because they're literally bringing in like heroin with fentanyl in it, and China's supplying them the fentanyl so that they could get the white dudes strung out on dope, because they're doing this crazy sophisticated cyber warfare operation. And the Democrats are just all in on it. They don't care. I'm going to cover a story here. Let me move on with it. So why is it a symbol of hate? Because these people, they hate the Republicans so bad because there was that Dakota Access Pipeline thing. And they think the Republicans are racist because of this whole what I just went over. And so they hate Donald Trump lividly for all of these things, because on Facebook they get fed what is called atrocity propaganda about police brutality and about racism against all of these different ethnic groups. And everybody's chiming in because all these lefties are like getting likes on their post, and they're rising up the social hierarchy when they make the white man go down the hierarchy. And so the target here is actually the white man. And so this Black Lives Matter thing, the Chinese government actually they have been sending people through Chinese Communist Party controlled corporations. They've been feeding you through Facebook atrocity propaganda about police brutality through advertisements on Facebook. This is actually absolutely real. The Pentagon has been addressing this in official press briefings. I'm not making anything up. You can call me out. It's definitely been happening. The Chinese are 100. We're going to go over this here more in detail. Let me move on here. So this is what's going on is they're getting donations on Facebook, and there's all these different organizations getting donations, and can't like on there's a BLM Foundation, and then there's like the hashtag BLM people that are like doing all this fruitcake defund the police and pro LGBTQAI plus issues, and Donald Trump is their symbol that they hate. Trump Tower is the Golden Tower. Does he live up on top of Trump Tower? I'm sorry, I don't know if Donald Trump lives up top. The tower where he has the golden apartment, it's the Golden Tower. Donald Trump is the enemy of the people at the top of the ivory tower, because the people at the top of the ivory tower want to buy the Golden Tower, but Donald Trump won't sell out. And so the media has been making money hand over fist with putting out all of this boogeyman propaganda against Donald Trump that is exactly in line with the Chinese Communist Party. 100%. I'm going to go over exactly how it is in line with the Chinese Communist Party. But just take my word for it. As somebody who helped start the 2016 anti-Trump protests, when it started, you could ask, I don't know, there was like 30 some odd people that helped start this protest. I was the loudest person screaming, fuck Trump, fuck Trump, fuck Trump, fuck Trump. And then it turned into a Black Lives Matter protest. And then we started shutting down the freeways. And then it turned into a riot, because the more these people are out chanting all of these slogans in the street and talking about how much they hate Donald Trump and meeting people in person and making networks, the more radicalized they get. And the more they hate, they blame conservatives. They say that these people are the people who are oppressing the WAMN, because the conservatives are the one with all the money. But what they don't understand is that the people in control of the tech companies are the ivory tower liberals, who are feeding us fake news garbage. They'll tell you anything you want to hear in order to get you to like their post, watch their ads, buy their product, and vote for them. And this is why they're hella sleazy. And you can't trust anything that comes out of there. I find so much fake news. Let's go through some fake news here. Well, here's they've been putting these BLM hate symbols up all over because they're getting funds from these donation drives. And then they're also getting them on moveon.org and on change.org, where they have all these different petitions, and then they attach themselves to BLM, and then they start getting donations for their cause. So these donations are then being used in order to put up basically advertisements for the Democratic Party, because the last time we heard about Black Lives Matter was right before the 2016 presidential election. I know this because I helped start one of the protests and I was in the BBC News. Yeah, definitely. So this stuff is happening on Facebook. Here, this next article here from Newsweek says, Facebook audit key quotes, failing to censor Trump sets terrible precedents. Really? It says a 2-year investigation into Trump's civil rights policies came to an end this week with the release of a 89-page report that describes serious setbacks resulting from decisions made by the social network giant. Publications of the audit comes as Facebook is embroiled in a vast ad boycott led by a coalition of civil rights groups, which have accused the Mark Zuckerberg-led platform of failing to stop the spread of hateful conduct and misinformation and extremism. But the report has been brewing for years, led by civil liberties expert Laura W. Murphy and a team from law firm Reflex Coflax, led by partner Megan Case. And anytime you read a news article and you see them mentioning a source, you should probably go look them up. So let's look this up. Here is Laura Murphy and Associates. It says Laura Murphy is president of Laura Murphy and Associates. She's an influential national civil liberties and civil rights leader and consummate party strategist. She brings more than 35 years of experience in government and advocacy, including 17 years as director of the ACLU Legislative Office, where she advanced legislation on free speech, criminal justice reform, national security, reproductive rights, LGBT and civil rights, and internet privacy before Congress and the White House. She's testified more than a dozen times before Congress and has been celebrated for building effective bipartisan coalitions. Murphy serves as senior advisor to Airbnb, helping the home sharing company update its policies in leading its effort against discrimination on its platform. In 2016, Harvard University selected her as one of the Advanced Leadership Initiative Fellows, a year-long program that for highly accomplished and experienced leaders who are interested in tackling new challenges in the social justice sector. In 2015, Murphy received the Hubert F. Humphrey Civil Rights Award for, quote, the selflessness and devoted service in the cause of equality from the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. So anything that this woman says is going to come from an extreme left-wing bias. What's this Reflex Komen? They do, it says, our commitments in solidarity with anti-racism protests, protecting transgender students at school, securing accessible, affordable housing in Los Angeles, combating predatory lending in New York City, challenging race discrimination in the service sector. Who's this? Megan Case is a partner at Reflex Coleman. Megan joined the firm in 2008. Her practices combine civil rights litigation and civil rights counseling. Her civil rights legislation practice focuses primarily on employment, housing, disability discrimination, resulting in individuals, organizations, and classes, and litigating classes from the administration process through trial. She conducted multiple federal jury trials and served as class counselor of the firm's long-running race discrimination against the United States Secret Service. This is kind of a key thing. So she's serving as class counsel in the firm's long-running race discrimination class action against the United States Secret Service, which is directly controlled by the President of the United States. So she's suing a government agency to which Donald Trump is the president of. When a person like that is involved in a audit, she has a conflict of interest when it comes to anything regarding Donald Trump. She shouldn't be sitting on this board doing this audit. She didn't like Donald Trump from the start, from what it sounds like to me. And this is why you should look people up. Don't just listen to what they say. This thing is long. And if you're watching, there are a lot of really good news stories. I'm trying to get through these ones as fast as possible, but this one goes cray. You have to understand a little bit more detail about what is going on here. Who is behind these Facebook boycotts? The article says the report offers a detailed, often damning breakdown of Facebook's struggle to tackle hate speech, fact check, post, and moderate content. Auditors describe their horror at its handling of Donald Trump and express shock at some quote unquote heartbreaking decisions made by executives, yet acknowledged quote unquote notable progress in other areas. quote, Facebook has not yet devoted enough resources or moved with enough speed to tackle the multitude of civil rights challenges there are before it, the report says. This provokes legitimate questions about Facebook's full-throated commitment to reaching the summit, fighting discrimination, online hate, promoting inclusion, promoting justice, and upholding civil rights. It's a lengthy and thorough analysis of Facebook's policies, procedures here. So here's some of the key takeaways. So when they say that Facebook has been failing to uphold, to do enough to work for these civil rights challenges, you have to understand these people are known as ivory tower liberals. They sit up top, they ivory tower, telling you about what you shouldn't do because they're trying to get you to like them, buy their product, vote for them. And they will, they'll sell you on socialism while they themselves will not share. And they will say that the white man is racist while they themselves are extremely racist. They're double speakers. They speak into mirrors. And what they're saying here is they have been fighting this struggle for civil rights because it's their job, right? So like they have to believe this stuff or else they run out of a job. And Facebook hasn't been doing enough about this because this is what they've been doing their entire lives. Why hasn't Facebook done everything that they want them to do? Because this is the simplistic mentality that goes through these people's minds. So let's go through the what they said in here. Lead author Laura Murphy acknowledged Facebook has made positive shifts towards improving civil rights internally, but stressed the work is only the beginning. Key quote, Facebook is a different place than it was 2 years ago. Some teams of employees are asking questions about civil rights issues, before launching policies and products. But this progress represents a start, not a destination. While the audit process has been meaningful, it has led to some significant improvements on the platform. We have also watched the company make painful decisions with real-world consequences that seriously set back for civil rights. That's fluff. Here's one. It says, the next section says, approach to civil rights, quote unquote, reactive and piecemeal. The investigator noted that Facebook has listened to they would be really scary if they were proactive about that. Like, I mean, they kind of have to be reactive about it. They're not supposed to be proactive about suppressing your free speech. The investigator noted that Facebook has listened to the concerns during the audit and made some challenges to improve their experience for users, but said more needs to be done, including strengthening its voter suppression policies that could help police controversial posts made by politicians as the 2020 election approaches. Key quotes. Quote, with each success, the auditors become more hopeful that Facebook would develop a more coherent and positive plan of action that demonstrated in word and deed the company's commitment to civil rights. Unfortunately, in our view, Facebook's approach to civil rights maintains too reactive and piecemeal. Quote, many in the civil rights community have been disheartened, frustrated, and angry after years of engagement where they were implored by the company to do more to advise equality and fight discrimination. The directed at Facebook for some quarters at the highest level seen since the company was founded, certainly since the civil rights audit started in 2018. That's fluff. Like, I'm sorry. Where do you measure this like level of frustration? This is like a claim of an opinion here. So here's what I'm talking about with the they've been disheartened, frustrated, and angry after years of engagement where they implored the community to do more to advance equality and fight discrimination. So they're like, oh, well, we've been doing this for years, trying to get you to do this. We've been radical lefties since the dawn of Facebook here. Why have you done anything? It's like, maybe because you're a radical lefty. Next one says, Trump posts setting a terrible precedent. The auditors can't hold back when discussing the negative impact the U.S. president has on the platform on multiple occasions, especially during this year. The team said it would, quote, not understand, end quote, why the social network platform allowed misrepresentation of voting methods by Trump, saying it only undermined the public commitment previously made by Zuckerberg, who asserted voting is voice. Okay, and so what they're talking about is the voter ID requirements, because they're claiming that it's racist because, according to these people, black people are too uneducated, lazy, and poor to go get an ID for voting, because you must understand that many anti-racist people secretly hold very deeply racist beliefs. They are advocating, they are being the white knight and Xena social justice warrior princess, sicking her beta male attack dogs on the imaginary misogynistic pig boogeyman from MSNBC that mistreats and abuses women, locks them up in the basement, beats them, rapes them, won't let them vote, work, won't let them, and then puts birches over the head. And so sorry. Sorry, I just completely spaced out because I just love that imaginary misogynistic pig boogeyman thing so much. It was funny. I can't remember what I was saying about misogyny. They're oh yeah, the voter ID thing. So they're saying that the black people can't get IDs, like as if they don't know where the DMV's at, and they can't afford money for an ID because like they don't want to go to the bar or buy cigarettes or, you know, do anything else, like go and play the slot machine or anything else that you need an ID for, right? And if they didn't have an ID, it would definitely help them out if they did actually have an ID. So if we made them have an ID for voting, then it would help them out by helping them get an ID. But to these lefties, they think it's racist because it's going to prevent the black people from voting. And why? Because the Democrats require a maximized black turnout in order to actually win the election. You have to decode this from the knowledge that these ivory tower liberals are Democrats, and everyone is trying to ascend to the top of the ivory tower. And the white feminists are only really doing it for themselves because they want the equality movement. And what is the equality movement for the white women? White women control 2/3 of the wealth in the United States and 85% of the consumer spending. They hold almost 2/3 of the college degrees. Now coming out of college, they're buying 91% of the new homes, 92% of vacations. Like, why do these people need more money? And it's because they're white feminist. If you don't know what that is, it's a racist version of feminism where the white women's issues come first before people of color. Some say it's before women of color, but it's all people of color. So this article says the team said it would not, quote, not understand why the social network platform allowed. Hold on, I already read that. Sorry. In May, Trump made posts describing official state-issued ballots or ballot applications as, quote unquote, illegal, and gave false information about how to obtain a ballot. Facebook said none of the posts had violated its policies, but the auditors did not seem to. Okay, so if you're too stupid to understand that, like, you have to, in your state, you have to go to the polling booth in your district, then, you know, the bad's on you. This is like civics 101 here. If you don't understand, there's plenty of people who are going to clarify that for you. I do understand, that could cause some headaches. I don't know what the law exactly is on that, but we do have to be real. A lot of what the stuff that they're saying is going to happen is just kind of kooky nonsense, like the voter ID thing. And then they're like, what is the other thing? And then they're saying vote by mail was that Donald Trump was making up things about how vote by mail is going to be a scam. And this is complete BS. I covered this in another different episode of Real Simple News, that in New Jersey, they had disqualified like 40% of the mail-in ballots for fraud. Yeah, massive voter fraud can happen with mail-in voting. And it's not that mail-in voting is insecure. It's that it needs a two-factor authentication system similar to the way that your phone works, and you need to have a verification system that your vote got tallied up correctly. They need to give you some sort of anonymous ID. When you vote, you should vote. You vote by mail. They give you a thing, and then they're going to print up all of the election results and put them up on a wall downtown so you can see it. And you could do a system where you take a picture with your phone. So you got a picture of your ballot of your phone, and then you can store that like in a blockchain. So there's ways that you can secure mail-in voting that make it the most secure way to vote, period. But whenever you start rolling out a new system, a new voting system, it's highly susceptible to fraud. Any system, vote by mail, vote by ballot box, vote by anything, it's going to be susceptible to fraud when you change the system. This is a fact. This is the reality of changing systems, is that there's unforeseen security vulnerabilities. Anytime you release a new piece of software, it's probably going to get hacked. You know, you have to plan for this ahead of time. But all the things that they're saying are like the Republicans are being racist and targeting minorities for this is absolute complete nonsense. The article says in May, Trump made a post describing official state issued ballots or ballot applications as, hold on, I already read that. I'm sorry. Key quote, the auditors are deeply concerned that Facebook's recent decisions on post by President Trump indicate a tremendous setback for all policies that attempt to ban voter suppression on Facebook. From auditors' perspective, allowing Trump to post to remain establishes a terrible precedent that may lead other politicians and non-politicians to spread false information about legal voting methods, which would be effective, allow the platform to be weaponized. And so this is what they're saying, is that Trump and the Republicans are weaponizing Facebook with this voter ID thing. Okay, so first, this is nonsense. First off, weaponization means specifically that you're harming a group of people, like actually causing harm to that group. It does not mean that you're using it to rig the election. That would be what the words meant that just came out of my mouth. So Facebook is being weaponized. But it's not being weaponized the way that these people are telling you. They only want to focus on race because they're Democrats. And when Democrats only focus on racism, they have an edge over white people and over the Republicans because they can use a mob of people to hate them and spread misinformation about them. And this mob has been triggered by companies, advertisements, atrocity propaganda fed to people on Facebook by Chinese communist controlled companies. I say that because China is technically a Nazi structure. We'll cover this more here in one of the next articles coming up. I'll try to cover this as fast as I can, but there's a lot of stuff in here to cover. Facebook is being weaponized by the Chinese Communist Party, by this anti-racist propaganda. This anti-racist propaganda is being fueled by the Chinese. I'm going to call them the Nazi Party because they are. Because they have millions of Muslims in concentration camps, and they have hundreds of millions of impoverished people, and they have ultra rich, and they have a dictator, and they have a surveillance state, and they want to be the world's number one superpower. That's Nazi. That is textbook Nazism. That's ethno-nationalism. Strongman ethno-nationalism. That's textbook Nazism. And they allow private property too. That's the other thing. You can't have private property in communism because it's community ownership. You can't have capitalism under communism because, well, those two things are incompatible with each other. So the weaponization is coming from the anti-racist propaganda. China has their own version of Wikipedia, and it is all rigged up with anti-racist propaganda, claiming the United States is the boogeyman, the racist KKK man who's coming after them, and they have to fight. They have to be prepared to fight the enemy because they're a dictator, and they are prepared to go to war with us. So this anti-racism, a lot of it's coming from college campuses where Chinese government is giving donations and where Chinese government has foreign exchange students who go to these universities, who also edit Wikipedia and who influence other people through the Confucius Institute, which is an institute that the Chinese Nazi Party has been giving donations to in order to fuel anti-racist propaganda and pro-socialist propaganda. And they're allowing student governments to be radicalized. And they put out this propaganda, a lot of it on TikTok, which is a Chinese government government controlled propaganda network that optimizes China-friendly messages and suppresses messages that are critical of socialism, of China. This is where the weaponization is coming. This is why they hate the Republicans, because the Republicans want to kick out the illegal immigrants. And the Chinese, they want to... Here it is. Here's the article. We're going to skip back to the other one. Here, Newsweek article says, scathing China human rights report denounces U.S. immigration policy for quote-unquote white supremacy. The article says a Chinese state-backed research institute has released a... Oh my God, these people just report on this stuff like it's legit news. Is Newsweek run by morons? Or are they actually pawns of the Chinese government? I looked them up, and they were owned by the IBT, the International Business Times, and then they let them go. There was another history of they were owned by the Washington Post, and then now they're quote-unquote independent. And so I don't know whether to tell you what to tell you, but here, let's read into this Chinese Nazi Party propaganda. Says has released a report criticizing the United States for its record on immigration policy, alleging widespread abuses of xenophobic mentality favorable to white people. Oh, you mean the majority of people, the 76.5% of Americans who are white, who have a low birth rate. But that's not the only group of people. Actually, black people have about the same birth rate as African Americans have about the same birth rate as white people. And Asian Americans, we looked it up here on the show. All these numbers have come off the show, been on the show before in prior episodes. But so I know these numbers. The birth rate of the Asians, of the second, third generation, fourth generation Asian Americans is only child. It's actually only child. It was 1.4. And then it has slipped down to a little bit over 1.0. So they're saying this is racist towards the white people, that we're not kicking out the illegal immigrants when 56% of these illegal immigrants are from Mexico. And they're taking over our southern border. And if we don't do that, if we don't enforce the immigration policies on the southern border, our neighbor Mexico will move up here, and we can't push down south because that's racism. That's white supremacy. But it's perfectly okay if the dominant Mexican culture, because in that area, the Mexican culture is dominant. They are El Cock down there. They are the ones who are taking over. And the white man knows they are the beta male down there. And they are allowing it because 2/3 of the Latinos are voting for Democrats. It allows them to boost their population, which allows them to get more seats in the U.S. House so they can control the United States House of Representatives. So this is not white supremacy, but China is behind this stuff. And the way that I found out that China was behind it was I called out their boogeyman propaganda on the article called The Great Replacement on Wikipedia. I was like, wait a minute, what's up with this? Why are you like making these people who don't believe it support illegal immigration? Why are you making them sound like boogeymen? And I said, where's the immigration numbers? I specifically said that this was boogeyman propaganda. And I asked for immigration numbers because has to be a reason as to why the birth rates are low. Like, what's the reason for it? And the reason for it is feminism. It's because the women are being told to put off having a family And almost 2/3 of the degree holders coming out of college are women. So the men can't compete now. The women are just, they're cat ladies now, dude. Like, this stuff ain't good for, like, when a woman puts off having a family, or hold on here, when a man puts off having a wife until his 30s, and he gets himself into a successful position, he will have a wife because he can afford to have a family. But if a woman puts off having a child until after having a family until her 30s, then her family line dies off, which is nightmarish. So on the one hand, you have the best case scenario. On the other hand, you have the worst case scenario. And so that's why our birth rate is low, is because of these ivory tower liberals preaching feminism, while most ivory tower liberals come from affluent families, or most affluent families come from two-parent households. There's a mother and a father, and the mother takes off from work and raises the child, because that's how you need to you need someone to educate your child that has a personal relationship with them. It needs to be the mother of the child. She shouldn't just like work full time. She should work a little bit less than her husband and be with the kids. Spend time with your kids. There's nothing wrong. This isn't sexist. They're saying it's sexist. The reason why is because China wants the white man to be gone from this country. That's why. When we are speaking Spanish, the culture that they're at war with is gone. Who are the majority of fighting age males in America? White men. So what they're doing is they're doing a cyber warfare campaign in order to deliver chemical and biological weapons through their propaganda network on Facebook. So they did this in the George Floyd protest, amping up the crowd with atrocity propaganda of perceived epidemic of police brutality by white police officers. And the media has just been buying this stuff hook, line, and sinker, because in China, when they put out this stuff, kind of propaganda, they can sell their news articles in China. People will buy them. Chinese government will use bots to buy your product, to prop up your media organization, to like your post on social media. If you go on to over here, we can see the here is the Chinese government, state government propaganda channel on YouTube. This is, if you put any sort of comments on here that are critical of the Chinese government, they will delete them. And so what we want to do is look up Hong Kong. And so they already banned one of my comments on here, but, if you say on one of these videos, critical of Hong Kong, because people in Hong Kong can own private property, and there are ultra rich Asians and a totalitarian dictatorship. China is not communist. They are a Nazi structure because they have millions of Muslims in concentration camps. The people of Hong Kong should overthrow Xi Jinping and install a democracy. Long live the democratic people of Asia. And then you can go look for yourself. Won't be there later. So, what are they saying? The Chinese government here is utilizing our immigration policy by funding, propping up specific companies that are democratic controlled companies, allowing them to sell products in China because their message is in line with the Chinese Nazi Party propaganda. And they don't question the fact that you can't have communism with millions of people impoverished and hundreds of millions of people impoverished and millions of people in concentration camps, especially when they've killed hundreds of million, like over 100 million people. Actually, I think it was like 70 million or something. Look it up. So they're using this Newsweek organization to deliver Chinese state propaganda. This is a cyber weapon because they are delivering chemical agents to American civilians in the form of fentanyl that they're supplying the Mexican and South American cartels that bringing up through California and these other border states, funneling in massive amounts of drugs, getting people, causing a homeless epidemic of people strung out on drugs on the street, cartel dope, banging dope, taking shits on the street corner. Like not even over exaggerating. It's actually, people are literally banging heroin, taking shits on the street corner. And you can get all kinds of nasty diseases on any street corner, just about, in San Francisco. Next to ivory towers. And this is the weaponization because they are able to deliver at the George Floyd protest. They are able to deliver to you atrocity propaganda, which is a form of boogeyman propaganda, which boogeyman propaganda is propaganda meant to create a boogeyman that you have to be afraid of. You have to be afraid of the boogeyman because it's coming after you, which is different than just atrocity propaganda because that's not necessarily boogeyman propaganda. But this is boogeyman propaganda from China directed at white males in order to deliver chemical agents to kill United States civilians. And the Democrats and all these mainstream media organizations are just going along with it. And I can't make this shit up because you can actually verify that the Chinese government is actually saying these things. And we have a news article here that shows you that indeed the Chinese government is indeed attempting to harbor illegal immigrants in the United States. It's a federal offense for you to encourage illegal immigrants to stay. It's a crime. It's a felony. It's literally something you can actually go to jail for. And they're just allowing it left and right on Facebook, and they're using it to deliver. Delivering biological weapons when they deliver this atrocity propaganda on Facebook to bring people to the George Floyd protests. Here we can see that there was a direct. This website is amazing, covidusa.net. We can see they have detailed COVID death statistics, and so they've been talking about this second wave, right? And so you see here on the average cases per day over time, and you can see this huge explosion. It's bigger than over here, right? So there's got to be people just dying out in the streets left and right? Only you go down, you look at the average deaths per day, and you're like, oh, it's at really low, okay? And so it is starting to go up very slowly, but we've seen that before. Just graphs do that, right? And so, but we can see that there's a correlation. I'm an engineer. I like graphs and charts. This thing's nice and well laid out. So here's the peak. It was 81 days of the deaths, and then here's the peak of the average cases per day, which is 91 days. And we can see that there's a delta of 11 days before people start dying. Whenever you see the peak of the average cases in your testing to the peak over here. And then we can see that we know that testing started to increase, especially as the more people are fed this fear propaganda through the mainstream media. They start to get more tests and they start to go to the emergency room more often when they don't need to. And so we would assume that because we're seeing this quote unquote second wave, that we would have more deaths than over here. But this is not true. You remember the flatten the curve thing? Well, there's a flatten the curve thing here. And so what happens, the reason why COVID's so deadly is because you haven't had it before. And if you deprive yourself of getting the flu when you're younger, when your immune system is more able to take it, then when you're older, it has a higher probability chance of killing you. And so the reason why older people don't have such a high rate of deaths from the flu is because they've had a different kind of flu earlier in their life. And so this is why so few people died from the last outbreak of swine flu, because there was other variations of the flu that were similar to swine flu. And there was like 60 million infections and then like 600,000 deaths about that. But what we're seeing with infection, that's still high. I'm not going to discount this. When you look at this 650 times 365, it's a large number, but it's going to go down. It's not going to be that high. We're seeing right here, we're seeing a Gaussian curve. So we've gone past the peak and we're going down. It's going to mutate and then turn into something else. And then we're going to eventually find some vaccines for it. But as for right now, they're fear mongering because they know herd immunity is kicking in. There's only so long that it can spread. There's only so many. Every single strand of viral outbreak like swine flu has only been able to go so far before we get herd immunity. And so we're going to start reaching this point. And then at this point in time, they can't sell these COVID test kits and they can't sell these masks, and the Democratic Party can't control us through making us wear masks. In Oregon, now you have to wear a mask in the grocery store, even though we can see, I'm not going to have, I thought I had it. The grocery store is a very low risk. So like any place where you're not going to be talking to people, like a bar, a bus, if you're talking to somebody and your breath can spray in their face, then like on public transport, you should definitely wear a mask. But like if you're going into the grocery store, if you've already had COVID, and you are not sick with COVID, there's zero reasons for you to wear a mask. Absolutely zero. I've already had COVID. I can't get COVID. I can't give you COVID. So when you force me to wear a mask to go into a store and I don't have a mask, I am no longer able to speak on private property. So what you've done is you've abridged the times, places, and manners where I can speak on private property unnecessarily, because I've already had COVID, and the vast majority of people do not have COVID. And if you do have COVID, you should stay at your house so that you don't get people sick with COVID. That's just kind of obvious, right? Why on earth would you go out to a bar if you have COVID, right? I can totally see maybe if they have some sort of swab where you can get tested for COVID, you can maybe require that to go into a bar without a face mask or something. But it's kind of crazy I'm not going to go into a bar with a face mask on. Like, I'm trying to like hit on some girl and be like, yo, what up, girl? And then, like, I can't do that with a face mask on, dude. Like, you're like trying to drink. How do you drink alcohol with a face mask on? Like, I drink alcohol like maybe once every 2 or 3 years or something at this point in my life. So for me, it's like very rare to go out and drink. So, why do I have to wear a face mask when I go out? I'm just not going to go out. So what else is there on here? Let me keep going through these articles here in Facebook. So I got to the weaponization part. So I'm just going to summarize the rest of what they said. They said free expression is good, but it must apply to all. Key quotes, we're going back to the Facebook audit quotes here so that I can get through this article because it took really long. Key quotes, elevating free speech is a good thing, but should apply to everyone when it means that powerful politicians do not have to abide by the same rules that everyone else does. A hierarchy of speech is created that privileges certain voices over less powerful voices. The prioritization of free expression over other values such as equality and non-discrimination is deeply troubling. Quote, we're concerned about politicians. We capitalize on we capitalize on policy will capitalize on policy gaps made by the president's posts and target large particular communities to suppress votes of groups based on their racial or other characteristics. With only months left before a major election, this is deeply troubling and troublesome, as misinformation, sowing racial divisions, and calls for violence near the elections can do great damage. And do great damage to what? Oh, to their chance to install a Democratic president, right? Because what damage has actually been done? The rioting and looting. Where are all these rioting and this BLM riot and loot group? Where are they organizing at? They're organizing on Facebook. Facebook is literally gathering donations for Black Lives Matter, which is a anti-Trump, anti-Republican, pro-Democrat, pro-Biden political organization fueled by donations people think are going to Black Lives Matter, when in reality, they are going to fight Trump and Republicans. It's not going to help legalize drugs, which I think a lot of people would say most of this crime would go away if we just legalized drugs. Wouldn't have all this cartel problem. So it's like they're double. These people speak in a mirror a lot. So they're saying free expression is good, but it must apply to all. Except for Donald Trump. Why? Oh, because if you don't support illegal immigration, then you're racist, right? Oh, so you mean the left is able to get everything they want if they bully me and say that I'm racist and get me fired from my job, make so that I am targeted because I'm the white man, I'm privileged, and I'm like in the class of the rich and wealthy people, and that just somehow justifies you targeting me and attacking my white privilege so that you can come up in your social hierarchy. And that's really what this is all about. It's about, they don't want Trump or anyone else coming up in the social hierarchy. They want to give you the mic. They want to be the one that is amplifying your messages, because these people controlling these civil rights groups are the ones who are going to share your post with their following, that are going to be able to make it so that you can come up. And they want to make it so anybody who is conservative is now a racist, a misogynist, a xenophobic, Islamophobic, anti-Semitic, and all this jazz. And what they're doing is that China has been rigging Wikipedia. And so what they do is they're putting all of China's enemies into the far right category. And so historically, far right politics has meant flat hierarchy versus steep hierarchy. And so there's this misconception out because of the Chinese Nazi Party propaganda that Stalin is a far left person. And so this is false. Stalin started out as a far left communist. That is true. But it is not possible to have a dictatorship inside of communism. It's impossible. It's impossible. No. The moment you have a dictatorship, it becomes a steep hierarchy. The moment you have a mass amount of incredibly poor people, and then you have a incredibly rich group of Communist Party members, that becomes far right. That's not communism anymore. That's a dictatorship where the people don't have any money. Right? They're like, no, it's communism. They're like, okay, so what's the difference in between communism and a dictatorship where the people don't have any money? Right? What is the difference in between it? There's no difference. Right? Oh, communism can't have a dictatorship. See, communism has to be community control. This is the entire, people think that Nazism isn't socialism. It's like, first off, it's National Socialism. So what does that mean? They're like, oh no, that's not socialism because people can own private property. It's like, okay. So what does communism mean? It means nobody can own private property and the government controls the means of productions. So what is fascism? It's a form of socialism. Today it means a lot of different things. It's like a slur, but who was Mussolini and Hitler? They were fascist. and they were socialist. Hitler was a socialist. They say, no, the Marxists were the polar opposite. Like, no, dude, that's their political enemy. They're saying, no, I've been a Marxist my entire life and it wasn't working out for me. I have a different version of Marxism here. That's absolutely not any different. So Nazism is basically strongman ethno-nationalism fascism. It's where the state controls the means of production and you can own private property. But that is still socialism. So what they've done here on Wikipedia is they've inserted all the enemies into the far right category. So they say nativism is a form of a far right politics. And so I don't know if you've ever been to Hawaii. I'm from Eugene, and there's a lot of Hawaiians around here. I've only been Hawaiian once, but I was adopted by a Hawaiian family when I was there. So Hawaiians are very nativist. So if you go over to Hawaii and you say, no, you native Hawaiian, you are a racist, you don't deserve to control your land because you're a racist, they're going to tell you to fuck off, Howley. That is what they're going to tell you. In those exact words, fuck off, Howley, and they might hit you. Same thing with anybody on the res, dude. If you go to any of these Amerindian reservations, they too will also say fuck off to you, and they might beat you up because natives don't like that. So they're saying this is far right because anybody who is against immigrants, who supports immigration restriction measures, is now far right. And why? Because China wants to wipe your culture out. They want to replace it. So what they do is they have your neighbors, they prop up your neighbors so they come and eventually take over your land. So that's why they've rigged up Wikipedia, because it's a cyber warfare operation. So they say authoritarian tendencies. Yeah, I mean, let's be real. It's a dictatorship. What is nationalism? You require nationalism under socialism in order to keep the people together. Like Chinese government, they're all about Chinese Communist Party, dude. That's extreme nationalism. So why is China not in here? It says the Wikipedia article says historically used to describe the experiences of fascism and Nazism. Today, the far-right politics includes neo-fascism, neo-Nazism, third position, the alt-right, white nationalism, and other ideologies or organizations that feature aspects of ultranationalist, chauvinist, which is not like male chauvinist. It means like patriotism. If you like support America, if you have like a flag like this or something, because you can't have this because that's like a symbol of racism and hate or something. I say xenophobic, theocratic, racist, homophobic, anti-communist. Here's the key one here, anti-communist. Far right, anti-communist. That has been incredibly centrist for the entire history of the United States. And then here's the other reactionary views. This is Chinese Nazi propaganda. You're like, oh, you're a reactionary. Oh, so you reacted. That's what, because it's a catch-all. You can say it for anybody. Far-right politics can lead to oppression, violence, forced assimilation, ethnic cleansing, genocide against groups of people based upon their supposed inferiority, the perceived threat to native ethnic group, nation, state, national religion, dominant culture, ultra-conservative, traditional social institutions. So that describes China. But if you look in here, Mao Zedong's not in here. Is it that? Neither of them in there. Why is Mao Zedong not in there? I mean, he fits all of these things, a lot of these things. He's far right. He was nationalist, extreme nationalist. He was featured, that was ultra nationalist. They were chauvinist. They were xenophobic of outsiders because they're communist. All communists are xenophobic because the other of capitalists, the other people on the outside are your competing enemies. So this is how they're brainwashing people, is by putting all this propaganda out. They fund universities. They send foreign exchange students out. The foreign exchange students are children of the Chinese Communist Party. They don't send like poor people out, dude. They send people who to preach the Chinese Communist propaganda line. This next one here says failure to protect democratic processes. Quote, the exemption is highly problematic and demonstrates a failure to adequately protect democratic process from racial appeals by politicians during elections. We have substantial concern that these politicians and their potential to be exploited for target communities, false information, inaccurate content designed to promote discrimination, stereotypes, and or for targeted manipulation, intimidation, or suppression. And so what are these people trying to do? They are trying to intimidate the far right. They are trying to manipulate them. They're trying to suppress them. So every single thing that these people are saying that the far right is doing is what the far left is doing with the help of the Chinese government. How many more of these do we have? They're good. Let's keep going. The next one says content moderation remains troubling. Key quote, civil rights community and the auditors were deeply troubled by Facebook's decision, believing that it ignores how much statements, especially when made by those in power, targeted towards indefinable minority communities, clone vigilantism, legitimize violence against that community. Okay, and so they're talking about Donald Trump here. They're saying Donald Trump is a vigilante. The problem with this is that Donald Trump is the commander of the United States military. A vigilante, by its very definition, means people who are trying to be extrajudicial, track somebody down for an alleged crime and be the judge, jury, and executioner. That's what a vigilante is. Who's doing that? Definitely Donald Trump can order drone strikes to kill civilians. He's actually allowed to do that. So when Donald Trump put out that tweet that said when the looting starts, the shooting starts, that was an announcement from the commander of the military saying it was a public announcement saying when you do this, the military is going to start shooting. Shoot what? Paintballs? Yeah, they do that. They actually do that. They're going to shoot tear gas at you. It's actually true. They're going to shoot rubber bullets at you too. Beanbags. All kinds of stuff. So it was true. It actually happened. When the looting started, the shooting actually started. The cops, the local cops that were not under the control of Donald Trump, they were under control of local, state, and local laws that have a separation of powers from the federal government. And it was not Donald Trump that was doing that. But it got so bad that the federal government actually had to send in the federal marshals to start enforcing the law. The quote also says, the auditor shared civil rights community's concerns, strongly urged Facebook to remove the post, but didn't have the opportunity to speak directly to any decision makers until Facebook had already decided to leave it up. And so it's just all focused on Donald Trump. Like, aren't there other far right leaders in other countries? See, this is the biggest problem with this report here, is that it is absolutely about Donald Trump. It's about the 2020 presidential election. It's about the Republicans. It's about winning. It's about labeling the white man as racist, preventing him from enforcing their immigration laws so that they lose California and Texas. And so that slowly we speak a different language. And when that happens, our culture is gone and the Chinese win. They win when Mexico takes over Southern California and Texas. Here, the next one said, algorithms could flag posts condemning hate speech. We think Facebook needs to approach this issue with a greater sense of urgency. There are steps it could take now, including mandatory training and guidance on known best practices, company-wide systems for ensuring AI fairness guidance towards the following that are being followed, that we would help reduce bias and discrimination concerns over the expert census reach. So what they're saying here is they want you to bias the algorithm so that our posts rise to the top, because we want our message the civil rights message that these crazy lefties get paid to do. If these issues never got solved, they wouldn't have a job. They require these issues being here so that they can put food on the table and keep the lights on. The next one, we got two more. What do we got? One more. Last one says Facebook is not sufficiently attuned to polarization. Quote, the auditors do not believe that Facebook is sufficiently attuned to the depth of concern on the issues of polarization and the way that the algorithms used by Facebook to inadvertently fuel extreme polarizing content. The auditors believe that Facebook should do everything in its power to prevent its tools and algorithms from driving people towards reinforcing echo chambers of extremism, and the company must recognize that failure to do so can have a dangerous and life-threatening real-world consequences. So I'm going to agree with her on this one, but she thinks it's the far right who are being radicalized. It is absolutely not that. It is the far left who are in the echo chamber being radicalized, and because they blocked everyone else out. People who aren't blocking people out are not being radicalized because they're having conversations with these people who are getting painted as a boogeyman, realizing that they're not actually bad people. So how did Facebook respond? Chief Operating Officer Sheryl Sandberg released a statement Wednesday ahead of the report publication, which it conceded that the site has still a long way to go when it comes to civil rights, and said that the company stands firmly against hate. Sandberg wrote in a blog, as hard as it has been have our shortcomings exposed by experts, it's undoubtedly been a real important process for our community. We would urge communities in our industry and beyond time to do the same. Lead auditor Murphy said that despite the investigation coming to an end, it's important to work on improving civil rights issues remain a priority at Facebook. His policies have directed consequential implications for the U.S. presidential election in November 2020. We'll be watching closely. Murphy wrote, responsibility for implementing strong equality, non-discrimination, inclusion practices rests squarely on CEO and COO. They have it to take it on its own and ensure that managers throughout the company take responsibility for following through. And so that's really scary, what these people are saying here. Well, if you read between the lines, they don't actually say that the far right people are causing the hate. Because the people causing the hate are the people who hate the far right, right? They don't call it a hate group because people hate you. They call it a hate group because you hate people, right? Right. Am I right or am I right? I'm right. Of course I'm right. It's a hate group because they hate people. The far left is a hate group. They have become a hate group. I know they hate me. They target me. I get bullied. I get cyberbullied. I get death threats. I get threats of physical violence to track me down at my house because I don't agree with everything they say. And they don't have the white man's back. They don't like the white man. And I'm sorry, if you don't have the white man's back, you're crazy to think that I would have your back. Why are these people pissed off? They're pissed off. They've been rioting and looting, out killing cops and white business owners because of George Floyd. And they said that George Floyd died or was killed by the cops, that he was murdered. First off, it's called a homicide because they don't know if it's a murder or not. So you should use the word homicide until the investigation's over. So this article from Newsweek says George Floyd warned police he just had COVID and didn't want to catch it again, transcript shows. And so these people are so late on this. I've been covering on this on the show for weeks. You know, I'm going to go over it real quick. I'm going to prove. Okay, so the article says George Floyd told police he did not want to get in their vehicles because he just had COVID. He did not want to catch it again. According to the transcripts of police body cam audio recordings, you can't just go to jail and catch COVID again, dude. You already have COVID. Like, they're probably not going to put you in with everybody else if you have COVID. In transcripts of the recording of Floyd's May 25th arrest, after the officers instruct him to, quote, take a seat inside the police cruiser, Floyd tells the police, I just had COVID, man. I don't want to go back to that. Substantial test for Floyd confirmed he did test positive for COVID at the time of his death. Transcripts known to the rookie show that former rookie Minneapolis police officers Officer J. Alexander Kuhn and Thomas Lane were told by Floyd that he was claustrophobic as another reason for why he did not want to enter the police car. Quote, "I'll roll the window down," and quote, Lane says after being told by Floyd that Floyd was, quote, going to die in the police car. I'll roll down the windows and put your legs out if that's all right. I'll put the air on you," Lane says. Floyd responds, "I'm claustrophobic. I got anxiety. Don't want to do anything." Floyd tells the police that he cannot breathe multiple times, and eventually that he wants to lay on the ground when ex-police officer Derek Chauvin arrives on the scene. Transcript. So Floyd continuously tells officers he cannot breathe and calls his officers who had already passed out at the time, telling her he loves her. Quote, I'm through. I'm claustrophobic. My stomach hurts. My neck hurts. Everything hurts. I need some water. Please, I can't breathe, Officer Floyd said. And so with that, here we're going to cut over to the video. This one's from the New York Times. We're showing it here for news purposes. Here, this is the video of the death. And what you can see, everybody thought that George Floyd was dead on the ground. But this video proves that that is not true. George Floyd was alive when they put him in the ambulance, and thus it would be impossible for Officer Chauvin to have killed him. So here's right after after the video where everybody's seen with Chauvin with his knee on the neck.
The EMTs check Floyd's pulse. Are you serious? Chauvin keeps his knee on Floyd's neck for almost another whole minute, even though Floyd appears completely unresponsive.
Coffee lips.
He only gets off once the EMTs tell him to. Chauvin's kept his knee on Floyd's neck for a total of 8 minutes and 46 seconds, according to the complaint filed.
So please note, the EMT checked his
Floyd
pulse.
is loaded into the ambulance.
Pulse. He had a pulse.
The ambulance leaves the scene, possibly because a crowd is forming, but the EMTs call for additional medical help from the fire department.
You added fire to your run?
But when the engine arrives, the officers give them, quote, no clear info on Floyd or his whereabouts, according to a fire department incident report. This delays their ability to help the paramedics. Meanwhile, Floyd is going into cardiac arrest.
320, if you could let MFD know that EMS needs to fire needs to go to Parking 36, your patient is a full arrest now.
There it is. You heard it. You heard it. George Floyd was alive on the ground. He had a pulse. He was not dead, just like everybody thought. It was fake news. This stuff's pervasive. This fake news stuff is all over the place. Here, let's switch over back to the RSS news feeds. That's where our news comes from here. This next article from Newsweek says we just went through that. Next article here from Newsweek: incredible X-ray map of the universe like you've never seen it before. Wow. How far does this go? All this says this all-sky image completely changes the way we look at the energetic universe, says researcher Peter Pilgrim. Wow. That's amazing. Next article from Fox News Science says more people can die from COVID-19 related hunger than the disease itself, Oxfam warns. More people could die from... Sorry, that was a repeat of the title. That was pretty sloppy, right? It says as many as 12,000 people a day could die of hunger linked to COVID-19 by the end of the year, according to the Hunger Virus Report. The group, which aims to elevate global poverty, notes that global mortality rate for COVID-19 reaches its highest recorded point in April, just over 10,000 deaths per day. Oxfam also warns the economic fallout from COVID-19 could push an additional 121 million people to the brink of starvation this year, which is a lot of people. Well, how many people died in the Spanish flu? Was it like 50 million people or something? Between 50 and 100? Something like that. All right, turn on the AC here. Next story from the Daily Mail. Bernie Sanders says Joe Biden will be a quote unquote progressive president. Bernie Sanders said a new policy platform unveiled by Biden will make the presumptive Democratic nominee the most progressive president since Franklin Roosevelt. Wow, that's scary. Right. So, like, he wants to be the next. So, Mr. Magoo, the senile old man, wants to be the next Franklin Roosevelt. Buddy. Nah, bro. Like, maybe Donald Trump could do that, but, like, he's Mr. Magoo, and he is creepy. He's the creepy old dude that sneaks up behind the girl, puts his hands on their shoulders, and says something creepier into their ear. Hey, some women love that, man. Some people are all about that. People look that the progressive label just is really, really toxic right now. This is just crazy that like they would even think that that's like a good thing to say, like progressive. So what does progressive mean? Far left. Like, oh, we want to destroy everything in your system. I was like, but it works. Oh, we're going to change it all at once because the white man's racist, right? This Daily Mail is some really just garbage news. Like, what the hell is this? Like, they put this, if you look at how many different articles these people put out in the news feed, they put out like, compared to Reuters, they put out like 2.5 times as much as Reuters. All like Newsweek and Daily Mail put out about the same amount of stuff out. And Reuters is decent news. But it's like we rarely even see news from Reuters because there's so much other garbage. That's why I, have to cover fake news because there's just so much garbage news up here. Like this next article from Newsweek says, Army handout suggests Trump's MAGA slogan is considered quote unquote covert white supremacy. Congressman Mo Brooks said heads should roll for the handout, deemed that those responsible should be prosecuted and fired. So you tell me, when you read this article, what do you think? What do you think from the title that the article is about? You think from the title that the article is about the slogan MAGA being racist, white supremacist. No, that's absolutely a mischaracterization of the article. This is actually fake news clickbait. Let's read the fake news here. It says, in a list of 58 examples of socially acceptable white supremacy in an Army handout, one gathered the attention of Representative Mo Brooks and prompted a military investigation into quote unquote make America great again. So who's Mo Brooks? American journey politician serving the U.S. Representative of Alabama's 5th Congressional District. The handout was emailed to personnel and civilians in Alabama's Redstone Arsenal as part of an investigation into a series of seminars entitled Operation Inclusion. Brooks, a Republican whose district includes the Army post, called the Army to prosecute and fire the personnel responsible for the political propaganda. Brooks said in a statement that the deeply offensive and racist handout violated the Hatch Act, which restricts political activity for executive branch employees. He deemed an investigation into the document's distribution in a letter Army Secretary Ryan McCarthy that copied Donald Trump, White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, and Attorney General William Barr. Cynthia Smith, a Army spokesman, woman told the Army Times that an investigation was launched as soon as Army leaders were made aware of the handout. The Army does not condone the use of phrases that indicate political support, and quote, Smith said, quote, the Army is and will continue to remain an apolitical organization, end quote. Political told Newsweek she was pleased that the Army had launched the investigation and appears to be taking this sordid Hatch activity violation, taking this sordid Hatch Act violation seriously. He expects those responsible for the violation to receive nothing less than severe punishment. The congressman said termination is ideal because the best way to send messages to the Army and federal taxpayer resources to advance partisan campaign activity is absolutely forbidden. Anything less than termination is a sign of weakness and tax approval of the worst Hatch Act violation ever seen, Brooks said. Newsweek reached out to Army for comment, couldn't get a thing. So what are they saying? They're saying some racist people put out some things that had like MAGA in it or something. So then the title says Army handout suggests Trump's MAGA slogan is considered covert white supremacy. Really? Okay. So, the handout, they had the handout. So it's not that the slogan "Make America Great Again," which originated in, I think, the First World War. It was used by both Democrats and Republicans. It was not co-opted by the KKK, as some people on the internet allege, because they saw a picture with a KKK person holding up a sign, which we have no idea whether or not that image was doctored or not. And it said, "Make America Great Again." But the problem is the slogan's been in use for a long time. It's been used by Democrats and Republicans. The Democrats were the ones who started the KKK back then. So they're making it sound like the Army is saying that MAGA is racist, but that's not the way that it sounds at all. No, the Army is saying very specifically, we're an apolitical organization. But to say that MAGA is white supremacist would be a political opinion. That would. You would be saying the Republicans are racist because they support MAGA. And therefore that statement that MAGA is racist would be a politically charged statement and would not be acceptable to use in the Army. Newsweek is garbage. This is the most fake news outlet. Hold on. Daily Mail might actually have them whooped. I think maybe Newsweek just might be run by a bunch of idiots, kind of like the Southern Poverty Law Center and the ADL. Next article here from Newsweek says we must decouple communist China, or decouple from communist China, from Newsweek. It says the imperative at post-COVID Western world punishes and distances itself from China. And I put this up here. I'm not going to read it. I just wanted to give them credit for it because I do criticize them a lot, but I am willing to give credit where credit is due. And yes, I definitely agree with this opinion piece. Next article from Israeli Times. Germany sees a rise in number of right-wing extremists, spike in nearly 8,000, mainly due to inclusion of members of far-right alternatives for Germany party. Number of far left and Islamic extremists, each up by some 1,500 people. And you can't believe anything from this newspaper. I love Israelis and Jews, but man, this Israeli Times is just like, you can't trust anything that they say because you're like, okay, well, this, because they're saying this is news, right? Like, where's this picture taken from? Is this from 2019? It's not news. This isn't like a new thing. I don't know what to say up here about this. Next article from Newsweek, Facebook audit key. Oh, wait, we just covered that. Florida coronavirus patient dies after 2 days of, after a hospital turns her away. 2 hospitals turned her away. And this is from Newsweek. Around 11% of COVID-19 patients in Florida get admitted to hospitals, according to the state's Memorial Healthcare System. That sucks that happened, but you know what? It's life. A lot of people go to the emergency room unnecessarily. There's a lot of hypochondriacs. They have to turn away. They can't, a certain amount of people, they can't just take in everybody. And so it's kind of crazy to think that this sucks that happened. But you know what? It's life. That's why when you get COVID, you should face it on your terms. You should start exercising and making sure that you're as healthy as possible. So when you do get it, it's on your terms instead of being in a weak, compromised position. Next article from the Daily Mail. China stands up for the WHO and criticizes Donald Trump for withdrawing the U.S. from the health body. Foreign China's spokesman Zhao Lijian said that the WHO, World Health Organization, is the most authoritative and professional international institution in the field of global health and security. And so obviously Daily Mail is a Chinese Nazi Party hack spitting out Chinese Nazi Party propaganda. So what are they saying else here? They're saying American government Monday notified the UN of its withdrawal from the WHO. Trump accused health body over its response to the coronavirus pandemic. And so if they think that it is such a good organization, maybe they should pay for it. Because historically, the World Health Organization has put out fake research articles about how marijuana is a gateway drug. And that's why they're giving them so much money, because it was their propaganda mouthpiece for the war on drugs. That's not a good reason why we should be funding them, because the problem is they're not going to really do anything for us, because the WHO requires on governments to self-report to them. China is not very honest. They're not going to self-report. You can't trust anything that they say. They're going to say, oh, we tackled the COVID outbreak because China is perfect. Socialism is perfect. There's no problems in China. Huh? No, what? No, millions of people in concentration camps and hundreds of millions of people impoverished while there's ultra rich and a dictatorship? Yeah, that's Nazism, dude. That's national socialism. Yeah, if they were trying to be the world's number one world superpower, that is called Nazism. Textbook Nazism. There's no other word to describe that. And these people are controlling the WHO. And the WHO, what are they going to do for us that the CDC can't do? Why can't we? See, the reason why the internet is so strong is because they built it, the DARPA model, built it for to make it so that you maximize the number of nodes in the system. You make it so that a large percentage of the nodes can go out and you still haven't affected the system. Like you have redundant servers, you have asynchronous processes, you have offsite backups and different ways to ensure that you don't lose your data and that your servers can come back up in a different location. You don't have like this fixed rigid network. And that's what's strong about our internet. And that's not anything like the World Health Organization. The World Health Organization doesn't really do anything that a private charity wouldn't do. They have meetings with bureaucracies, and so it takes them months to do anything because they have to schedule the meeting. They have to get all the countries to come to the meeting, and then at the meeting, it's just a bunch of blah, 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 red tape bullshit. They just spend most of the money that we give to them on the bureaucracy. So why aren't we giving the money that we're spending on the bureaucracy to a private charity and then tell those people, hey, we'll match you on like $4 million a year or something, right? I mean, $4 million a year, I think most people would say that we have that much money per year. $40 million a year, I don't know about that. $4 million a year, it's like a rounding error. $40 million a year, that's a lot of schools. $4 million a year is not a lot of schools. There's a lot of people, so relative to the number of schools, it's not a significant increase. But 40 million is where you can start affecting some change in some low income neighborhoods. So I mean, we have to build our own country before we can go helping other people out. Other people got to build their own country. Like, y'all got to take care of yourself. The reason why we're doing so well is because we are taking care of ourselves. We are doing all the right things with education and not allowing corruption. Like 90% of a lot of these projects in Africa go to corruption. Only like $1 in $10 goes to the actual project, and they do an absolute horrible job. And China's like maybe 50% of it goes to corruption. This next article from Newsweek says China does not want U.S. conflict, but will defend itself. Wang Yi told Virtual Forum in a virtual forum Thursday that it was time for the U.S. to adopt a, quote, more rational and pragmatic China policy, and, quote, following recent tensions. And so what rational and pragmatic means is that you give them everything you want and you don't say anything about Hong Kong or Taiwan or the South Pacific Seas. Hold on. What are those? South China Seas? South something seas, whatever. There's that they got that man-made island, and the U.S. has been sending warships in there. The article says China's foreign ministry has called out the U.S. to adopt a more peaceful and collaborative approach to Beijing amid frosty relations between the world's two largest economies. Wang Yi said Thursday the U.S. and China were facing the biggest challenge since the establishment of the full diplomatic ties in 1979. Wang addressed in a virtual forum on the U.S.-China relations Thursday, warning that too many people in Washington, D.C. now see China as an adversary or, quote, enemy, end quote, among poor bilateral relations, Chinese state media reported. Trade tensions, territorial disputes, human rights abuses, and COVID-19 coronavirus pandemic have all undermined U.S.-China ties since President Trump came into office. His term has coincided with broad realization in many democratic nations that authoritarian China poses a challenge to the liberal world order so long led by the United States and its allies. China has long loomed over Trump's presidency and is set to be a key issue in the November election. Both Trump and the presumptive Democratic challenger, former VP Joe Biden, has been bolstering the China skeptic credentials in recent months, driven by concerns that Beijing misled the international community about the severity of COVID-19. Yeah, and there's good reason to believe that the Chinese government had discovered SARS-CoV-2 and that they actually intentionally let the virus out of the lab. Now, we don't have any proof for that. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't believe in anything we don't have facts for, or that we don't have legitimate reasons to believe that. But there is legitimate reason to believe that they purposely let it out of the lab. The military has stated this. The Pentagon has been stating this publicly. This coincided with a massive cyber warfare operation against the United States to get more people out at the George Floyd protest, which is a method to deliver a biological weapon to U.S. civilians through a cyber warfare campaign. Now that is crazy. That's absolutely another level of China is a threat to us. That is like they're sending you messages in your house to brainwash you. They got all the teenagers on TikTok, which is a Chinese communist control, or no, call them Nazis because that's what they are. That is a CMP controlled company. It is. It's a CMP controlled company. Next article from NPR. When it comes to reopening schools, the devil's in the details, educators say. Teachers and parents and district leaders say back to school sessions have fogged over with confusion. Will schools reopen? And if so, how? Jeanette Norris is a teacher, a wife, and a mother, 8-year-old. Hold on. I don't want to go too far into this article. I think the stat I'm looking for is down here. So this article is saying like a third of the teachers are over the age of 50. So I'm calling BS on this article. So this article is saying that we shouldn't open up the school, or it's questioning whether or not we should open up the schools. And I'll admit, NPR does a very much so better job of like being intellectually stimulating, but biased to the left. Like, this shouldn't be public radio. This is definitely a left-leaning radio news source. The problem I have with this is that the young people have a death rate that is well within the acceptable rate. That we've never had a problem with that risk of dying from the flu in the past. It's true. We've never, ever, ever forced people to wear face masks inside. Never. This is a brand new thing, the face mask thing. And so you can't give COVID to people when you don't have it. And if you're asymptomatic, the chances you're going to give it to somebody is very low unless you're kissing them. Vast majority of people don't have any symptoms. Most of them are older people, immune compromised people. the younger people need a job. If the older people don't want to do it, the younger people are willing to do the job. They're sitting there lined up saying, we want to work. And this is the problem with these older liberals, that they turn into wusses. They're absolute sissy cowards. I live in Eugene, Oregon. There's a lot of lefties here. There's a lot of nice old like hippies that used to, go to the Oregon Country Fair. They are now maybe yuppies, you might say. These people aren't hippies. Like, these people act like they're hippies. They side with whatever the hippies do because a lot of them, their kids are these troublemakers. And so, a lot of them, they have good jobs, and then they allow their kids to be in counterculture, and they spoil their kids. Their kids are doing well. They're like come from an affluent family or something, like two parent household. And so they support these left-leaning policies, not because they have problems and they view it as the solution, like not like they're like struggling and they think that the solution are these policies. No, they're affluent and they don't have these problems and they think that these solutions are the problem. And this is why they're called the ivory tower liberals, because they sit up top the ivory tower telling you how you should live your life in order to get you to vote for them, watch your ads, buy their product, like their post, and they don't live in your community. They don't know you. They don't own businesses in your community. When those businesses shut down, it's not their property. It's not their home that's being foreclosed on. They don't live there. They don't pay taxes there. They don't vote there. They don't know anybody there. They don't even have associates that go there. They don't have any business ties in the community. This is why you can't trust what they say about your community. What you need to do for your community is you need to focus on what is best for your family and the people that you know and what you believe is best for you. And when they say, let's see, where is this article about America First? Let's skip over to the Biden article. It's down here. This one, I'll just do this one real quick. This article from New York Post says Biden vows to reverse Trump decision on World Health Organization withdrawal. So he wants to spend your tax money and give it away to a pro-Chinese organization that helps cover up the Chinese Nazi Party pandemic, the Chinese virus, the China virus, or the CCP virus, or the Wu flu, or the what's the other one? The Kung flu. Apparently these are racist because apparently Kung Fu people are a race of people now. Apparently China is a race of people. Well, I guess if you go by the Nazi definition of race of people, China is a race. But if you do not go off of the Nazi definition of a race, like a normal person, right, then you would say, no, China is not a race of people. So that can't be racist because China is a country. And Chinese Communist Party is a Nazi structure. So it's actually the Chinese Nazi Party, or the CNP, not the CCP. And here it is. Well, I guess here we already got it up. So this is next article from Newsweek. Biden's lead over Trump diminishes in new national poll. According to the poll, 43% of respondents said they would vote for Biden if the presidential election was held today. 39% sided with Trump, which has been about the same number as it's been. So this goes to show you that the support that was stated for President Trump was dependent on the mood that people were in from the George Floyd protest, which was not permanent. And in fact, actually, more than half of black people are moderate or conservative. Here it is. Here's the absolute ridiculous nonsense from Mr. Magoo, a.k.a. Joe Biden. It says, it's from NPR. It says, Joe Biden counters Trump's America First with Build Back Better economic plan. The presumptive Democratic nominee proposal includes $700 billion reinvestment in procurement and research and developing for new technologies. I'm kind of confused. That's almost $1 trillion. Like, that's a lot of money. Let's look into that, because that's a lot of money, dude. That's like as much as the military budget. What is Mr. Magoo saying here? Mr. Magoo says, or the article about Mr. Magoo says, Mr. Magoo, the Democratic presidential nominee, laid out a key plank in his economic agenda for the country, dubbed a Build Back Better. There's no A in there. In a half-hour speech Thursday, offering a competing vision of economic nationalism that President Trump has trumpeted in recent years. So, Donald Trump, this America First thing, that means like we're not going to put liberal principles ahead of the American people. That's what it says. Because it's not just liberal, it's leftist principles. It's not liberal. The liberal principle is freedom of speech. Leftist principle is to ban hate speech. That's the difference between a lib and a liberal. The article says, quote, the truth is throughout this coronavirus crisis, Donald Trump has been almost singularly focused on the stock market, the Dow and NASDAQ, not you, not your families, and quote, singular. It actually says that he has been, almost singularly focused. That's actually kind of funny because Donald Trump has been mainly focused on the coronavirus pandemic recently after he was elected. What is Trump focused on? Okay, so Trump's also his focus is on law enforcement and protecting our national heritage, which is not a racist thing. It's not racist to have a national heritage and to have that identity be of mostly white people, because 76.5% of America is white people, and that would be the majority of us. So that would be called a democracy if we, endorse the majority of the people here. So here's what Donald Trump says he did. He says almost 4 million jobs created since election. More Americans now employed than ever recorded in our history. I don't think that's up to date. We created more than 400,000 manufacturing jobs growing the fastest in 3 decades. Economic growth hit 2.2%. Unemployment claims hit a 49-year low, which obviously hasn't been updated since the pandemic. Median household income has hit highest levels ever recorded. African American unemployment has recently achieved lowest rate ever since recorded. In some of these cities, the African American male unemployment rate is at like 45%, which is crazy. A lot of them are selling drugs too. They're up in the city and they're like trying to do some alternative career. I used to produce hip hop music and sell drugs. I know all about it. Women's unemployment recently reached lowest rate in 65 years. Youth unemployment, a very long list. This is what he's saying here. I'm going to let you read the thing. Hold on. Where was it? There's a lot of stuff, a lot of good stuff. There's not a lot of really bad. The worst things that have happened during the Trump administration have been the race riots from the radical left, the hate coming from the radical left. So far, I haven't seen any wars, any massive corruption. Like the Russia thing was a bunch of bullshit. So Biden's a liar. He's Mr. Magoo. So what else did he say? Mr. Magoo said, quote, if I'm fortunate enough to be elected president, I'll be laser focused on working families, middle class families that I came from. Biden's economic plans to this date have focused on immediate relief for families, small business, and communities struggling amid coronavirus pandemic. But the proposals he detailed Thursday center around manufacturing and innovation. He outlined an agenda to, quote, buy American, end quote, which includes $700 billion investment in procurement and research and development for new technologies such as biotech, clean energy, and artificial intelligence. Quote, this will be mobilization of R&D, procurement investments that would be investments in ways not seen since World War II, end quote. Biden said, Donald Trump is trying to get China out of the picture. So this is definitely not an anti-China proposal at all. I mean, what we need to do is decouple ourselves from China to make it so we're not dependent on them for anything military related. And that's what Donald Trump is trying to do. He's been trying to bring back jobs from China to make us not dependent on us. This has been one of his primary focuses on it. You can even say that China has been Trump's number one focus, along with North Korea. Well, let's say communist, the radical, the crazy. They're not communists. You can't have a dictatorship and have private property. I mean, I don't know too much about North Korea, but it doesn't sound like the community owns North Korea. It sounds like there's a dictator who's in control of North Korea. So Biden's saying, vote for me. I'll give away your tax money to rich people. That's basically $700 billion investment into what? Into giving it away to rich people. So he's going to take 700. So that's the amount of money that we give to the U.S. military. So he's going to take that much money from you and give it to rich people in services that are not going to employ you. Okay, so let's look again at what industries. He said, technology, we're going to use it, bump it into biotech, clean energy, and artificial intelligence. Do you own a biotech company? Do you own a clean energy company or an artificial intelligence company? So it actually just so happens I actually own a clean energy company. I invented a new type of heat pump that is what is arguably the world's most efficient water heater. And I can actually literally heat your house with groundwater and sequester CO2 through a biomimicry process mimicking a cold-blooded animal lung using an evaporative cooler with ice water condensate in it. And I can use it to store thermal energy using ice, and I can use that to extract all the water out of your heat. And yes, it is a patent that I am in the process of applying for. And it is it sequesters waste heat from your house and it dumps it back into your water. That's why it's the most efficient water heater. Dumps out ice cold water, heats your house with it. And then I also have an artificial intelligence company, and it's called the A Startup. I do AI productivity software. I don't have a product for sale, but so the money might go to me. I don't think the money would actually go to me. I don't think one bit at all they would give me a penny. I don't think they would. I think that it would go to big companies. I would be left out in the cold. They would say, no, Cale McCullough hosts Real Simple News. He doesn't agree with immigration, illegal immigration. He wants the low immigration scenario. He doesn't want the high immigration scenario here. He doesn't want the 70 million extra people because that's a massive amount of pollution and there's global warming. And so it's not racist. No, it's about global warming. These are my values of why I used to be a radicalized leftist before I became a conservative, before I realized that the conservatives weren't racist and I didn't support illegal immigration. Then I learned the facts, and then I learned I was really right. I joined Walkaway in 2017 after I realized the feminists, even though I was a feminist my whole life, they wouldn't have my back if I posted Meninist jokes. And I started posting Meninist jokes, and people started attacking me because they thought I was being serious. I was just joking. And I'm sitting there like laughing my ass off because I'm like, man, I've known these people for years, dude. It's a Meninist joke. It's like I was the Meninist Bible. I was just making up just random shit because people would like flip out and attack me. I thought it was funny. and that's when I joined Walkaway. And I didn't even know really what Walkaway was about. Actually, I thought Brandon, I can't pronounce his last name. I thought he was like some like douchey DJ that was just like trying to get attention. And, I found out recently he had the exact experience as me. It just so happens that he started a YouTube channel to get people to do testimonials. But that's exactly what happened to me. I realized one day these people wouldn't have my back. Even though I've been feminist my entire life, I've always voted for the Democrats. I canvassed for the Democrats for 4 elections. I canvassed for John Kerry and Obama twice. And who else? Who was the one before? I forget. The one before that, too, that lost against Bush. Who was that? I forget. That was a long time ago. But I was in college back then. I used to work for, I was a volunteer for Osberg, and I worked for student government. Now I think student government is a brainwashed, radicalized organization that should not exist. We should not have politics on campus. Campus is not a place for politics. Politics, getting people into politics and government, that instantly is radicalizing and biasing our colleges towards a political agenda. They thought it was such a good idea to allow politics back on campus, and then it's the student governments that are bad. It's the Osberg. Osberg has no business on campus. As far I was an intern for Osberg, I ran campaigns for Osberg. I sat on the couch at the Osberg couch at Lane Community College for many years, attempting to get laid by some skeezy hippie chick, only to find out that they were kind of nasty and they didn't fuck very good. And they didn't put out, and in the end, these feminist chicks were crazy as fuck and totally gave me a mind fuck that I thought was me. I thought it was me for years, and it turned out, no, there's some stinky shit up in these feminist pussies and up in their manginas. It straight up stinks. It smells like fish, bro. What am I saying? These people shouldn't. What is this article about? So these people, They are actually taking your student government money that you're paying in universities, and they're using it to fund Democrats through the student government. They're using it to fund these BLM, Antifa, Nazi riots. BLM is a riot and loot group. They are a hate group. They hate Donald Trump. They hate conservatives. They hate me. They want to kill me. This is why I can never support them. If you don't have my back, I'll never have your back. I know this sounds crazy, radical, but that's called reality, buddy. You don't have my back. I don't have your back. I don't have your back. You don't have my back. It's called like life. And that's the way people act. There's nothing wrong with that. Let's see what else we got. This is going a long time. So let's see. Disney World's trying to reopen. They're hassling Disney World, saying it's not okay to go to Disney World, even though it's outdoor. All right, these rides are all outdoor. What the fuck are they doing, dude? If you're going inside and something, wear a mask. I don't know. I don't think you need to wear a mask. Really don't think you do, unless you're in a bar, or you're like public transportation, where you're like close proximity to people. You know, you got to limit the viral load. You're not trying to prevent yourself from getting COVID, because it's just like if you don't get the flu when you're young, that your chance of dying when you're older of the flu go up like very high. The reason why younger people have a higher death rate from the flu than older people is because older people have had other different types of flu that make it so that they're less likely to die from the flu, right? So you're not trying to completely eliminate your chance of getting COVID. You're trying to reduce the viral load of COVID when you do inevitably get it. You're going to inevitably get the flu, another cold. You're inevitably going to get infected with some bacteria. It happens. You might lose your leg. You might lose your eye. You might have a heart attack from leaky gut, where you drank too much soda pop, and then it ate away your esophagus, and then bacteria starts going into your throat, and then it shuts your heart down, gives you a heart attack, heart disease. It causes dementia from the bacteria getting up into your brain and preventing your brain from cleaning itself out, because it's the immune system is compromising your brain. I know a lot about virology, actually. I modeled the human immune system. So it's kind of silly. It's like saying, look, these amusement parks are outdoors. I mean, come on, man. I mean, if there's any place where you are going to wear a mask where you don't care, an amusement park is a place where you would wear a mask where you wouldn't care, because it's not like you're at a bar trying to hook up with some chick or trying to meet business people where you need to You need to shake hands and smile and see your face. Like I need to be a human. I need to contact you, touch you. I need to feel your breath. I need to smell how bad your breath is so that I know whether or not I can trust you. Because if your breath is always nasty because you ain't taking care of yourself, bro, like you're not in. But if your breath, you have a problem because you got some bacteria in your thing, well, that's another thing. But that smells like fish, usually. So here's another article from Newsweek here. It says ICE offering Citizens Academy courses with training on arresting. It says immigrants, but it's illegal immigrants. Let's. That's definitely a misleading title. The article reads. The U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency is set to launch a 6-week Citizens Academy course on immigration enforcement, which will include training for citizens on how to arrest undocumented immigrants. Okay, so they said in the title of arresting immigrants, because what they're trying to do is they're trying to paint a false narrative to you that Republicans are racist and that they are targeting Latinos. Which is BS. We've always enforced our border laws since the dawn of America. Why do countries enforce their border laws? For the same reason why Russia invaded Crimea. Because if you don't enforce your border policies, your neighbors will start to flood across the border, push your sovereign border over until enough of their citizens control that area, and then they annex it. And you have a war. No shit, Sherlock. That's why the Chinese government is all up in this anti-illegal immigration enforcement cyber warfare campaign. That's why they're modifying Wikipedia to stick everybody in the far right and putting out ads like we had, or articles and public statements that they sent out to Newsweek. Newsweek gets a lot of their stuff because like the people send them press releases. And so the CCP or the CNP, the Chinese Nazi Party, sends them press releases. That's why they had that article before where we were talking about the CNP was criticizing the U.S. for enforcing our immigration policies. Let's be very clear. If there's one place in the entire world that enforces their immigration policies incredibly harshly, it's China. All right. If you illegally immigrate into China, you're going to end up in a concentration camp, bro. No, China's authoritarian. Hello, anybody home? They are Nazi, dude. If you go there, no, they are straight up Chinese ethno-supremacists, ultra nationalists. They're sitting there spouting out Chinese Nazi party propaganda all day. Everybody there reads Mao Zedong and Xi Jinping's Marxist book that's supposed to be different than Marxism. But the reality of the situation is that the hierarchy is National Socialism. They're ultra nationalists. They're attempting to be the world's superpower. They have ultra rich. They have a dictatorship. They have millions of people in concentration camps and hundreds of millions of impoverished Chinese that they use for slaves. That's textbook National Socialism. It does not get more National Socialist than that. These are people criticizing us for our immigration policy when they have millions of Muslims in concentration camps because they don't want Muslims taking over, right? The pot is, the pot's not calling the kettle black because we're not racist. Like, no, they just straight up crackpots. Like they are some authoritarian, everything's backwards because everything's a disinformation campaign with these people. That's what's wrong with authoritarians is they believe their own propaganda. What else? There was this story here from the Daily Mail that said Chinese exile Guo Wingui probed by FBI over media activity. FBI agents have reportedly been speaking to associates of exiled Chinese tycoon Guo Wingui and former White House advisor Steve Bannon for the past 6 months. And I'm just going to summarize it because it's a longer article. So this Guo Wingui, I pronounced it. He was like, put $100 million into Chinese Nazi Party propaganda. It looks like the FBI is trying to figure out whether or not he's actually working for the Chinese Nazi Party. But they don't know why the FBI is looking after him. I think it's a little bit premature to cover this in the news. I just wanted to cover this because I used to hate Steve Bannon, and I thought he was evil. I thought he was Dark Lord Bannon. And now that I'm a conservative, I think that Stephen Bannon fights for the good. Dude, I love Stephen Bannon's message. I despise authoritarians, like dictators. I cannot stand the Chinese Nazi Party, the oppression of the Chinese people. I cannot stand the anti-white racism, the attacks on our immigration system, our national sovereignty, the painting of the white man as racist, being racist, for enforcing our border policy to ensure that our culture remains in our country and is not pushed out, and that our southern border does not become up in my state of Oregon, which is right by California, because 1 in 20 people in my state is also from Mexico. This is this guy. I don't know what to tell you. I'm not going to tell you too much about Guo Wengui, except for the limited amount of stuff that I saw about him, I liked. But I don't know. Hear this next article from the Daily Mail. The trans lobby can't bully me into silence. Ricard Razio Sanchez, 30, who... Feminist academic Raquel Sancho doesn't shy away from writing about ugly stuff. She deals with prostitution, coercion, and intimidation. When she started her PhD on women and violence at Bristol University just over 2 years ago, Raquel felt unlikely to be exploring these complex issues in a supportive, she says pointedly, grown-up academic environment. She certainly didn't imagine she'd end up being threatened with violence herself, nor that the university that she respected would. She claims, utterly failed to protect her. For after attending the single meeting at a feminist organization, she found herself caught in the so-called turf war, trans exclusionary radical feminists, between women's rights campaigners and transgender activists. The term turf stands for So turf is a shorthand for women who deemed unwilling to recognize trans women as sisters. No, that is not what a turf is. No, a turf is a feminist who does not want to have sex with, who is not pansexual. This is what it is, because I have lots of trans friends. I've been hanging out with lefties my whole life. I know these people. What it is the people don't want to have sex with them. They became trans because they thought they were going to, it was going to free their sexuality, make them who they were inside. And when they got there, they realized that the people they wanted to have sex with did not want to have sex with them. And they become very angry. And the turfs, the women who are turning these people down are like, hell no, I ain't going to hook up with you. Like, you're a turf. That's why they're so offended. It's like somebody's calling you a beta male or a scrub or a skank. It's a insult. So these people, they don't stop. So this whole being pissed off thing is like a type of person that does this. They always doing this because they're always upset. And they target people. They do not give you a pass because you're of the same political persuasion. They target everyone, and it's almost indiscriminate. Like I said, how I joined Walk Away, I had helped start the 26 Portland anti-Trump protest. I was feminist my entire life. And then one day I realized that if I criticized feminism, even though I had been feminist my entire life, they would attack me. And then I put out meninist jokes and I was attacked. And I was demonized. And then it slowly turned from you're sexist to now you're racist. Because if you're sexist, then you must be racist because that's the way they think. And it is that you are going against their dogma. You are speaking out against the group. and it violates their number one principle of fairness, as in Steven Pinker's universal morals, the universal moral classification of fairness. They think that you have violated that, and you have violated the group loyalty of the group is being loyal. Is the group is based upon whether or not you're fair. If you're not fair, then you are excluded from the group while they preach about inclusion. And then you just have to understand that a lot of this stuff that they're with these LGBTQ2, TQ2IAI, 2CB movements, then they are there. A lot of it is just like people just attention seeking. Like they always want to keep trans issues trending because trans has to be trending in order for them to be trending. And it makes it so people click like on their post. It makes it so that they have a higher % chance of getting a job because they're elevated up, because they're a member of a discriminated minority group that needs to be elevated above the white man because the white man is so horrible. It's so horrible to help out the majority of the people. No, you have to help out only the minority of people, because it couldn't be so that if you helped out the majority of people, that the majority of people would then therefore help out the minority of people, because that one would be quite obvious now, huh? This is why we like capitalism. This is why we like inequality. Because the fact is, if everybody had unlimited resources, we'd live in a trash can. We wouldn't have anything, dude. There'd be no place to put everything. People would be like, they'd be like in that movie WALL-E. They'd be like those fat people up in those chairs. They'd be blobs, dude. The world is so good, and your computers are so good, and science is so good because we live in a real world with restrictions. You have to put constraints on a system in order to make the system good. If you just have unlimited, dude, it's like trying to make the perfect machine. I'm an engineer. I make machines. I have attempted to make the code that reads all code. I got really close too. The problem is there's no code to read all code. And the monstrosity of how much extra work there was to make it do all of that extra stuff made it unable to achieve the goal. In fact, I was much more quickly able to actually accomplish the goal by redoing what I did with restrictions. I have restrictions now. It's no longer infinite resources. This is good. But what these people want is they want equity for stuff that they did not earn. And it's the same problem with somebody who jacks you. I used to produce hip hop music and sell drugs and throw huge raves. I know all about people robbing my music studio for my music equipment. Almost everybody who's ever robbed me that I've known, they've wasted the stuff. They just went and they got like, they were fucked up on something and they went and they just took the stuff and they traded it for like pennies on, they maybe took, if it was $500, they're like selling it for 50. 10% of the value. To them, it was jack shit. For me, I worked really hard for that. Like I had to dose thousands of people for that. Right? And then they just come steal it. Right? And they throw it away. They don't use it because they didn't earn it. It's like when you take the farm under capitalism that is high production and then you give it to the communists. They say, oh, this capitalist person is making so much money hand over fist on this farm. So we have to take the farm away from it and give it back to the people. And then you give it to the people and it turns out they don't know how to farm. They're nowhere near as productive as the farmer. And then now you have miles to hand out bread that are 3 miles long. And when you get to the front of the line, they are out of bread. That is socialism 101. It repeats itself over and over again. Like the reason why Hitler lost World War II. Why? Because he was running out of food and gas. He thought he had unlimited everything. It's for one problem. Whenever socialists run out of food and gas, they start turning on each other. And it's just an element of human nature. And that's what happens with these people who are bottom feeder. Look, if you were at the bottom of the social hierarchy, there's chances are there's a very good reason for that. Okay. Chances are you deserve to be at the bottom of the hierarchy. Chances are the people who rose up to the top of the hierarchy did so because of merit. There's a very high probability chance. There's also a good probability chance too that your parents screwed you over by not making sure that you had the best education. And they're like, oh, it's the white man. It's the white man. It's like, nah, dude, your dad wasn't there. You had a single mom. And when you have a single mom, your chances of going to jail increase like, what is it? Like 19.5% or no, 19.5 times probability chance that you're going to end up in jail. It's crazy high. And these single moms, they do a horrible job raising kids a lot of times. The people who do the best jobs are two-parent households, traditional family structure. And that's what these radical leftists, these LGBTQIA, 2CB, MDMA, TCBI, MAOI people with the QT++, they want to destroy this family structure because they think that this is breeding white supremacy, that this is breeding these horrible white people who are dominant, who are able to compete with the other dominant people, because that's so horrible when you have strong, dominant white people. Because God knows that it's so much better in South and Central America where the cartels are, right? Yeah, they're way less racist in Mexico. Mexicans are very racist, okay? Light-skinned Mexicans, very racist against black people and Amerindians. Here's a story from The Hill. I read this story a lot on here. I'm not going to read it. It says Mexicans admit they're racist. If only we could. Mexicans are descendant of conquistadors from Spain that enslaved the people who were down there. They are some of the most racist people on the continent. They're not the white man is not the most racist people on the continent by far. No. Definitely. Conquistadors, the descendants of conquistadors are the most racist people on this continent. Definitely not the white people. In fact, the white people are suffering anti-white racism at a scale we've never experienced before. Let's see. What else do we got? Here's the coronavirus death risk graph. I wanted to pull this out earlier. The article says what could kill you: going to a bar and attending church poses a higher chance of catching COVID, but not opening the mail, this is a long article. This was from the CDC. They did a ranking of risk priorities from lowest to the highest. Oh, sorry, it's Texas Medical Association, not CDC. Says be informed, know your risk during COVID-19. And so it ranks here the risk factors from low to high. Highest here, going to the bar. Attending religious service with 500 plus worshipers is on a very high thing because you're talking to people up close in their face. Attending large music concert, going to movie theater, going to amusement park. I'm gonna push back on that, dude. Most amusement parks are like out in the open. Last time I went to an amusement park, I went inside a small handful of times. I'm calling bullshit on the amusement park because the amusement parks have been closed, right? How the hell are they going to sit here and tell me that the amusement park is going to be the place where you're going to be most likely to get COVID when the amusement parks are shut down and you don't have any sort of data to back that claim up? This is the problem with these lefties, man. I'm an engineer, so I've been dragged through the court system, and I've lost enough times in court to where I'm able. It's part of my natural behavior now to demand to know where the evidence is, because I've lost in court so many times and it's been so painful that I know that you have to do that. Where is the evidence of the amusement park? That's bullshit. I'm calling you out, bro. That's outdoors. It's outdoors, dude. There is so much stuff at amusement parks that you would not have to have anybody else screaming. Look, if somebody's sick, don't go outside. Stay in your house. Have people bring you food. As for the rest of us, I've already had COVID. I'm not afraid of getting, I can't get it from you. I can't give it to you. I'm not worried about an amusement park. This is just bad for the amusement park industry. The other one here says eating at a gym or working out at gym and eating at a buffet. Why is that a buffet? I'm not exactly buying that one. Moderate high risk, hanging out and shaking hands when greeting a friend, playing football, playing basketball. Dude, that would be way higher risk than an amusement park. You're talking about full blown contact where you're like, oh, like stuff's coming out of your mouth, bro. But if somebody's coughing, nobody wants to play with you. This whole thing is stupid. This whole thing is nanny state bullshit. This wear mask regulation here in Oregon that we have to wear a mask indoors. It's nanny state. It's like, dude, if I have COVID, I'm going to stay up in my house, bro. I ain't going outside, dude. You can guarantee if you see me outside with a mask on, I don't have COVID. That's why I'm not wearing a mask. I'm not worried about getting COVID. You don't have a right to prevent me from getting COVID. You don't. You don't have a right to prevent me from getting the flu either, or from getting pneumonia from bacteria. You don't have a right to prevent me from drinking when there's some sort of viral outbreak in the party community. You don't have a right to do that. It's a free country. It's called the United States. These are the liberal principles that we were founded upon. But who is trying to take these rights from us? The incredibly illiberal lefties. They say that's why we call them libs. They're not liberals, man. They're illiberal. Is there anything else? I'm going to shame this guy. I'm just going to read one more here. Two more. We're going to shame Cuomo. Dirtbag sent back how many thousand people? So this article from Newsweek says more than 6,000 recovering patients returned to nursing homes during the height of the pandemic in New York. Nearly 24% of all employees at nursing homes in New York State tested positive for the virus, according to the State Department of Health. And you just got to shame Cuomo. We've known about this, but it came up again because they looked and it was shameful. And this is the Democrats running the show. This ain't the Republicans. This is Cuomo. This is New York. I'm going to read one more and then I'm out. This next one from the Daily Mail says Illinois cop who exposed video of black man dying in back of squad car is placed on leave. Juliet Police Sergeant Javier Escuela was placed on administrative leave on Monday after he exposed video the moments before Eric Lurie died of during an arrest. And so you look at this article and what do you think? This cop's got his nose plugged. They're like killing this dude, right? This is like the cops brutalizing this. This is the white cop kills unarmed black man, right? They're like, oh, he's got a baton in his mouth. So they're demonizing, and that's why they put this dude on leave. Now you watch it. Let's watch it and let's see how sleazy this guy was. This guy, Julius Police Officer Javier Escuela, was placed on administrative leave on Monday after he exposed video of a black man dying in the back of a police car. Notice they did not say being killed by the police. So here's the video.
Hey, wake up. Let's go. Open your mouth. Open your mouth. Open your mouth. Open your mouth.
So like he's videotaping something with his phone, and that's how they got the video. This was the officer that they suspended that videoed this on his phone. All right, so the narrative that they tried to fool you into believing was that the cops were abusing this person, sticking a baton in his mouth, holding his nose. The reality of the situation was that they were attempting to save the man's life because he had eaten a lethal dosage of drugs because they were going to catch him with it, and he ate the drugs and he died. And the cops were trying to get the drugs out of his mouth to save his life. This is why they put the skis bag Juliet Police Sergeant Javier Escuada. He should be removed. He should never, ever be allowed back on the force. That's absolute bullshit. That he tried to frame these cops for murder by not revealing the truth of the situation, that the man had eaten lethal amount of drugs and the cops were trying to save his life when they did that. This is why we call it fake news, because it's far leftist with a bias. They're getting propped up by the Chinese Nazi Party in order to brainwash Americans to in a cyber warfare operation. And with that, I'm going to bid you adieu. Thank you for watching Real Simple News on America. This is Real Simple News America. This is my future talk show. I don't have any co-hosts, but we're going to have some co-hosts here. And you're going to see a bunch of really, really good debates. And so if you know anybody in the Eugene, Springfield area who... I'm going to be real picky. I am looking for a co-host. I'm looking for a Latino. I'm looking for a bunch of diverse people. I'm going to be emceeing it. I'm going to be running the show. So it's not, nobody else is taking over, but I am bringing on people and you can co-host. And this is Real Simple News America. If you want to do Real Simple News Mexico, Real Simple News Brazil, Real Simple News China, Real Simple News India, please contact me. Any of these countries. I want to hear Real Simple News in every language that we can. This is a huge problem, what we've got going on with the Chinese Nazi Party and with the radicalized leftists trying to push Marxism here in America. It's scary. It is not at all something that we can just ignore. It is a scary reality that we have to defend democracy every generation. It's not this need to defend democracy is never going to go away. We're always going to have people like the Chinese Nazi Party. We're always going to have competing. You can't just get rid of billionaires. What happens if we get rid of our billionaires? Other countries' billionaires are going to come over here and take over. So our billionaires are the lesser of the two evils. Our billionaires are a lot less evil than the Nazis, than the Chinese Nazi Party, than the Chinese Communist Party. Then we're a lot better than the dictators in Africa, you know. But they want you to believe that the white man is racist, and that's because they don't want us to enforce our immigration laws. It's because China wants to wipe our culture out. They want us to speak a different language because when they do, the white man has been removed. And that means the enemy is no longer in control of America in the sixth largest economy in the world, which is California, and the 10th largest economy in the world, which is Texas. Then China wins. So you got to put the wham man in check. You got to put Black Lives Matter in check. Call out the hate when you see it. Don't allow them to shame you. And until next time, like I say every time, thank you for watching. You've been watching Kayla McCullough, captain of the Kabuki Starship, which is a metaphor. I am designing a starship. And until next time, farewell, aloha, sayonara, peace be with you, and Godspeed in your journeys, friend.